welcome to our second ever annual general meeting, our AGM of the RCDF. We have to have an annual general meeting as part of our process as a foundation, but we always like to take the opportunity to do this as a meaningful set of conversations rather than something procedural. So what we really want to do in these AGMs is include our communities in our reporting, in our reflecting, in ways that maybe invite you to join us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching the recording. You know, we really encourage everyone to join up, support us, come and join our events and our conversations. It's very important for us to remain independent. So we rely very much on the voluntary contributions of all of our members and anyone who just finds us and wants to come to the odd event. And we also rely very much on any money contributions that people can make, and I'm sure Angela will say a bit more about that later. However, we're here today to talk about the last year, our activities over the last year, think a little bit about what it means that we've been around for 10 years now. And this is going to happen over 2 days. This first day, we have a first section which will be more the procedural thing, but we hope in a way that's inviting and interesting and engaging. So we will hear from the members of the board, and then we will move to a roundtable discussion, and that will end today's proceedings. And when I was talking to Angela earlier about this first section, we mentioned the idea of breathing and just being able to take a breath in life, let alone this evening as part of the AGM. So, you know, we can all take a breath. We don't need to panic and rush that we're not reporting the right thing. We're just going to reflect on who we are, why we're here now, what we've been doing. So I was going to hand straight over to Jose, but I'm not sure if she's on the call yet. So Angela, would you want to turn things around and make a start and do your section first?
So much, Sarah. And thank you also for this lovely introduction about taking a deep breath. I really can relate to that because we keep on rushing. And I think even this annual general meeting is actually quite a nice moment to take a breath and actually reflect, you know, on what we have been doing, you know, in the past year, because we just keep on going. And so I'm first going to try and share my screen. So since this is our it's actually the second annual general meeting, but it is the first full year as a foundation, and therefore also all the formalities that come with a foundation. So this annual general meeting, but also actually writing an annual report. And it's actually, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's also quite fun to do in a sense of that it allows you, you know, to reflect back on all the things that we have been doing. So I'm just going to kind of like flip through it a little bit and share a few ideas. I mean, this report was actually published today on the RCDF website, so it's available for anyone to download and have a look. But so, yeah, what I kind of like wanted to point out first is this idea of when we became a foundation. So even though we started 10 years ago as an informal network, with becoming a foundation in October 21, we established the boards. So we have a supervisory board, we have an advisory board, and then we have the executive board. And so I think after 1 year, I mean, Jose will hopefully join us in a little bit, and she'll tell a little bit about the supervisory board. I mean, and though they are especially, you know, to help us on the legal side and on the networking, also on networking on finding funding and things like that. But I think what I would like to address, especially also, is the advisory board. So these boards meet 3 times a year. And especially in the advisory board, we have all these amazing people. There are 10 members. And I think after 1 year that we can conclude that we haven't used it to their full potential. So rather than focusing on the logistics, we want to switch things around for the coming year where it will be much more a focus on the content, where we can hopefully through these meetings start thinking and formulating a manifesto rather than, focusing on the logistics and the finances and the donations and things like that. So that's one transition we hope to make after 1 year of experiencing. So again, I really do invite you to have a look on who's in these boards, because they're all absolutely amazing people from very different expertise, walks of life, geographies. And then we have the executive board. So those are basically the people who do a lot of the day-to-day work. And I really, it was a steep learning curve the last year. I mean, I had no idea how intense it could be to run an actual foundation, the legal side of it, but also the admin, the taxes and things like that. But again, after 1 year of experiencing the board, the executive board, I think we've come to the conclusion that we would really like to go back to a much more flexible way of working, like when we were an informal network, where it was very organically, where people, kind of like spontaneously took up responsibilities or tasks. And so especially also in the last year, people have been reaching out, how can we get more involved, or like interns or that want to join. And of course, they have a short period of time. So we want to open up the executive board again to a much more flexible and fluid organization. So we have had people joining, coming and going, working either project-based or very specific tasks. And one of the tasks you may have seen is that we're rethinking our visual identity. The logo and the color scheme and the website were created 5 years ago by RCA students of yours, Sarah. And so now lately in the last month or two, we have been having quite a lot of conversations about how we are perceived, that monochronic, identity, is that very representative of the diversity of people that are involved in the RCDF. So so that's one of the things that, the executive board works on is, these kinds of things. And also as people come and go, we're going to kind of like have a much more fluid identity, if you like. So when people work on projects, they can kind of like make it their own, how they want to communicate and how they want to graphically design the communication for specific events. I'm mindful of the time, so I'll try to. And then we could never, ever, ever, ever be who we are today, all the activities that we do, without the incredible dedication and time and energy of what we call a small army of volunteers. So I especially, of course, they'll never, ever fit on one page, but I've tried to point some out at least that have been really incredibly important in the last year and have been doing so much work behind the scene. So I'm multitasking because I'm also letting people in. So our vision and our mission, of course, need to be in our annual report, but I do want to kind of like point a few things out. So we started the conversations as kind of like an alternative for our annual, academic conference that we start as what started this group of people. But from a decolonial perspective, we started, reflecting on what an academic conference is and what it represents, which voices are heard and which knowledges are acknowledged. So based or inspired by the Decolonial Summer School, we started the conversations on decoloniality and fashion, I believe in 2021. Convened by Erica de Greef and myself. And it's really, really a space of knowledge creation. And that's not always, people are not always aware of it. I mean, these days, a lot of things are called conversations, where you basically want a knowledge transmission, where people just want to be provided with knowledge that they can then take with them and integrate in their own work. Whereas the conversations is really, really a space of active participation and active knowledge creation in relation with each other. And I'd like to use Rolando Vazquez's words here, how a conversation is an engagement, and it's key in the transformation from a position of consumption to a position of taking responsibility, from a position of indifference to a position of engagement in difference with others. From a place of compassion where we can allow ourselves to be touched and transformed by the other. So I think that is very particular to the conversations, and I'm very grateful for this space. This is our third year that we're doing it. And we've been recording the first 30 minutes of each conversation. So in the meantime, it's also been feeding into an incredible, unique, I think, open access archive on the RCDF website and YouTube channel for everyone who is looking for information, created in a different way, shared in a different way than your average, let's say, academic gatherings. And so the annual general meeting last year, the recording is available on YouTube for whoever wants to have a look. But what was definitely a very, highlight of last year was the introduction of our very first RCDF zine created by our editor-in-chief, Mi Medrado. It was an absolutely amazing first edition, and I can't believe, but she did it again, and she created a second edition, which will be presented tomorrow. But again, an incredible highlight of last year, which was followed by a conversation, and which will also be the case tomorrow. And then we also introduced our decolonial fashion films, which was quite a success. It was so nice also to have the makers to participate in a conversation following that. So we're doing that again tomorrow. So everybody is invited. And then finally, in October of last year, we had our very first Global Fashioning Assembly, which was a year in the making. It was definitely an incredible journey of how we finally managed to have 12 coalitions in 14 countries across 6 continents to all join in one event. But instead of being the guest to an event, the event was actually hosted and passed on from one community to the next. And what that does is really interrupt these global power inequalities that you usually see in, again, your more conventional international gatherings. So you could really travel without actually leaving, your own seat or desk, to all these different communities where you were the guests, and where the program, the format, the guests, the language was all decided upon by the communities themselves. And in between, we had sharing councils, which were not breaks, but they were actually an incredible space to exchange and reflect on that, on those amazing hosting sessions. All that, again, is recorded and made available on the YouTube channel and on our website, on the GFA website. So, because the idea is also that in the long run, that it becomes an independent entity by the communities, for the communities. So this year we established a steering committee so that it can really safeguard its independence, so even independent from the RCDF. I think I'm running out of time. Am I? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Sarah.
The quietest moderator in town. Yes, I'm unmuted now. Angela, are you ready to move to Rolando's film, or do you need a couple more minutes?
No, I just want to invite everybody to have a look at the annual report, because it is really amazing what we did manage to do in the last year. So no, this is just a kind invitation to have a look.
Thank you so much for that really rich run through of, you know, an incredibly packed year. You've really, yeah, I mean, some of us were here and we saw it and we were part of it. I'm aware that many people will be watching this who are coming for the first time. I know we had a lot of new sign-ups to this meeting, so I hope that's given you a flavour of the kinds of things that we've been doing in the RCDF. And always looking to the future, we're looking for, you know, we're thinking now about next year, and, you know, do you come and be part of it? We're now going to move to an 18-minute film, I think, that Rolando has recorded for us. He's unfortunately unable to come to this meeting live, so he's going to address us through a pre-recorded little film. And then, Jose, if that's okay, we'll move to you and your report from the board. Yeah.
So thank you so very much, Rolando, for finding the time to pre-record this contribution to the annual general meeting. I mean, it's been a puzzle, but we found a little bracket of time between your very busy schedule. And yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe we can continue where we left off last year for the annual general meeting, when you were so generously sharing your ideas of what it would mean to decolonize fashion, what it would mean to transition to a politics of redress. And I think you were also explaining about the logic of representation and owing to a logic of reception and owing. Maybe we can continue on that note.
Yes, thank you, Angela. I'm sorry I cannot be live on Thursday, but I'm glad we arranged this small moment to share some words with you. Well, I thought we could talk, following up from last year, on dressing and dwelling. So the connection between dressing and dwelling, and first to think coloniality in terms of dressing, and then to think the decolonial in terms of redressing. So I thought a little bit about this, and maybe we can have this conversation briefly, although it merits a much longer conversation. Well, I was thinking that coloniality can be explained as through the term of divesting, which actually means to strip of one's dress or one's possessions. So if we use divesting, and vesting comes from dressing, then it is that act of stripping, of depriving people from their worlds of being. And in that sense, you already see that redressing would be to recover that relation to those worlds of being through which we could dress or dress again, right? And what is divested essentially in coloniality is a relation, a relationality. So I will try to speak about that relationality, and so that we can think how restitution in the manner of redress, to use the term of Sandra Niessen, what would it mean? What is redress? What is restituted? So that's what I was thinking. I don't know if it sounds good for you. And so I think when we think the coloniality of fashion as the movement of divesting or a divestiture, so the act of stripping and of depriving of other worlds, then we have that what is severed through that logic of fashion is a relation, so relationality. And I think both in both sides of the colonial difference, those that are divested from their worlds, but also those that are dressed up in fashion are also deprived from those relations. So So lately we've been working very closely with the Iku or Arahuaco community in the Sierra Nevada of Colombia. And they weave bags that are called tutus, the round weave bag. And the tutu in Colombia, they are called mochilas in Spanish, is precisely speaking of that relation that is divested through fashion or severed through fashion. So as if the sartorial logic is about cutting those relations to create a form, an artifice. And so what you have in the bag, as the Iku or Arhuaco peoples tell us, is you have a complete weave of a cosmological order, of an ancestral order, of a communal order, and of a relation to Earth. So the material of the bag is produced in the territory, and the colors, the pigments, but also in its form, it carries their deep understanding of the cosmos or their cosmology. It also carries the ancestral memories. So it is, in a way, a manner of writing, of the keeping of memories, of remembering. And it also keeps a relation between the living community, both in terms of family relations as communal relations. It is all inscribed in this act of weaving, or it is all activated in the act of weaving. And therefore they say the bag is alive. You know, it is not an object. It is not a commodity like the fashion object that is a commodity that is made for the now of dressing up, and then it will be passed and become waste. So in the back of the Arhuacos, we find that that it is not an object as a commodity, but it is a thing that is alive, and it is alive because it expresses those relations. Its form is a verb of the relation. It doesn't have a design that, let's say, the designer that designs a form and that and then consumes the materials and the inks to produce that form. So that human object relation that is of dominance, but actually the bag is the coming to form of the relation. Yeah, so that is a very deep way of understanding this weaving, and I think it is expressing a fourfold, which is a term that in Western philosophy is famous through Heidegger, and actually in a way Heidegger is getting close to it, but actually it's very deep from ancestral philosophies from the Americas and from First Nations and Indigenous nations. For example, in South, what we call now South America, there is a chacana that is also a type of fourfold. And the fourfold will be this, the relation to Earth, like Earth as a living and as in a way, a motherhood, a belonging to Earth is belonging to a motherhood that sustains our life. And the cosmos, which is the movement that enables the stars, but also the seasons, and that is in connection with the Earth. So there you see Earth and cosmos, but you also see the relation to the ancestral community, so in time, to what precedes us, and to the living community of today. So the ancestral, the living, the Earth, and the cosmos. So this is the fourfold in which the bag will emerge as a relation. And I think this way of, let's say, dressing was a way, or is a way of inhabiting, of being on Earth as communal beings, as Earth being, as cosmic beings, and as ancestral beings. And this is what gets destroyed when we produce the individual that is in the loss of Earth, with Earth as property, in earthlessness, with the loss of community, with the loss of worlds, the worldlessness, the loss of the cosmological understanding that there is something more than the individual, and the loss of memory, the replacement of the ancestral memories with the monument or the textual histories that produces that individual. So in a way, the fashion is an expression, Western fashion is an expression of that individuality that is separate from all those relations and that is subjected to where the body is put at the service of the image of the commodity, the image of the now, and we become that. We dress up in the commodity form. We are in fashion, like the commodity, we become in the now. And so that is, I think when we understand the coloniality of that, we understand that it is a power of representation that is built in the loss of the relations. Hence, as we were saying at the beginning, from that divestment that produces a single self, we need to move towards the plural self, and the plural self needs to connect back, to remember back what has been dismembered, and to recover that relation to life, to earth, to the cosmos, to the living community and the ancestral community, or what precedes us. So I think all that is at stake when we speak about redressing. It is about moving away from the dressing up into become invested again as a way of being invested on earth, dwelling, remembering. So you see, it is so the critique of fashion in this way is a very deep call to transition away from the logic of the ontology of the West that separates the self from earth, that separates the self from the object, and to learn again to inhabit and to dwell. That's why I said, well, we could title this little conversation Dwelling as Dressing, or Dressing and Dwelling. So how can we understand that those ways of dressing of peoples of the world are endangered by fashion, but they carry the relational ontologies that have strong answers to the limits of the Western model that is destroying the earth, destroying the communal, and cutting us from our ancestral memories and our cosmic realities. I think that is in a nutshell what I wanted to share when you asked me about continuing the conversation on redressing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rolando. But it also feels that contemporary fashion was basically invented as a way of cutting those relationships, because if you have a relationship with your garments, you're not going to discard them and buy new ones, right? So the whole system is that you don't have that relational anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think whenever we address these topics in so many conferences on sustainable fashion, and and they come up with all these ideas, that's also what you've been addressing a lot, this obsession with innovation, of how we're going to solve our problems, our current problems, by looking to the future, right? By innovating in the future. But the core of the system is that idea that you don't have a relation with your garments, so that every season you can get new ones. And as you say, every season you can kind of like adopt a new identity, or at least that's what's promised to you through that ideal, that fantasy of fashion.
It's interesting, this is also for a longer conversation, but it's interesting, this contradiction between a fashion that speaks of seasons and a body or a self that has a life we have that has become without seasons, without the relation to the seasons, like the seasons of earth, like our supermarket that is in eternal spring, or So I do think that the self in the West has lost the relation to the seasons of the earth that are key to many cultures in terms of our well-being. For instance, in Chinese medicine, the seasons correspond to how our body is with the earth and in harmony with the earth. And that gets replaced by an idea of seasons that has to do with the market, so there is the fetishization of the seasons, and that even furthers that disconnection of the self from so this body without seasons in which we live, where let's say we wake up at the same time, at the time of the clock, and the schedules of whatever public transport or airplanes or jobs, irrespective of what's going on with the planet, and with the seasons. And I think
with your own biological clock.
Yes, so and fashion comes kind of to substitute that real connection of the seasons with a logic of consumption. So it is one, I would say it is one of these mediations I speak of, where relations are destroyed and replaced by mediations that are produced through the market and through consumption. And there are many examples of this, how we replace relations with mediations. So instead of knowing how to produce our food or how to cook our food, we consume it. And then the mediation replaces the relation. And we might be consuming chemically the same ingredients, well, ideally, but we have lost the relation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same, we might be dressing in seasons, but we have lost the relation to the seasons. So I think that is something we would need to think more together.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rolando. I'm mindful of the time. Thank you so much for your contribution. And at least this way, you will be able to be with us on Thursday evening for the general meeting. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to see you next time live.
I hope so too. Bye, Rolando. Thank you.
We're going to have an opportunity in a little bit to start talking about some of those ideas, and also many other occasions across the next year. So yeah, and I hope that all of you guys on the tiles and those of you without your cameras on, I hope you'll all be there too to talk about this. I'm going to pass now to Jose, who has the report from the board. Which board is it called? The board of the
board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies, I was a bit later because I had to find the right link, but I'm happy to be here. Actually, it's Angela who made the annual report, but we are very happy, that we are with our first results. I think our first official results on being an official stichting foundation with a small team, and so I think really dedicated. We have a dedicated board. We really try, to support the ideas as good as we can, and we actually were very glad with the opportunity and the first money, that grants that actually were awarded to us. And at the same time, we also, I think, were really we had a meeting a few days ago to finally look at the report. I'm not sure if we're going to share it here, Angela. Are we going to share the report on screen? Yeah.
I already did. So
you already did.
Yeah, I just highlighted a few topics. That's okay. Yeah. And it's published on the website, so it's available for everyone to download. Yeah.
So I think two important things to say. So I think we are trying, I think with this foundation, we are trying to find, to be a sort of, the foundation is especially just a money generation to make us, to accommodate, a position where we actually can try to find funding for all activities. as a board, we are very much, we know it is not easy. We see this as a start, and we hopefully can all the activities that are realized will help us to generate more grants in the future. At the same time, we as a board were also, I think, very much maybe not surprised, not the right word, but really, I think we did all the activities that have taken place and the impressive way that different communities have participated in this initiative. In the end, I think for almost 10 years, but I think looking at the last year, I think it's amazing. And the energy that's there, and also the dedication to the time and energy that everyone puts in realizing events, setting up events, and just trying to be a community, I think is really really amazing. And Angela, of course, is a big driving force. And I really admire the way that she's not trying, to own things, but really, trying to listen and trying to collect the communities and trying to make it a collaborative effort. And I think that's definitely a very key element of what, where the collective is about. So I know that that's the way we have to take it forward, but that's also sometimes is something that maybe holds us back, or holds, if we're looking for the different foundations to ask for money, they ask something for something else. So we're not fitting always in the system. But I definitely think there, a lot is been done. The new easing is amazing. The last assembly was great. So so really, we are as a board, and we discussed it last week. So we are really impressed, and we're very supportive to help this initiative to make sure we also get a 20th anniversary. So that is probably the best. Yeah, I think this is for now the most important part to say, actually. So we are supporting. We also think that with this being now an official stichting is a starting point. And, in this short period of 2 years, I think we already have gained and learned a lot, and also have, very good results. And yeah, we're trying to work on it to support and the initiative in the coming years. Yeah, and the easing the new scene is looking really, really good. So that's enough. So thank you, all of you who have contributed to it, and very welcome to all the newcomers on this great collective, because I think it's really an amazing way of working, that we just across the globe with different communities really try to discuss and to debate the future of fashion and dress and communities and everything, and the colonial and the decolonial, all those aspects. And I think it's only a conversation that we only just have started, and we can just have, can have that. It's a wonderful debate to continue for a new period, the coming years. So thank you all, and also I'm speaking also for the other board members. So a small team, but dedicated to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. I think we've got, I'd like us to take a 5-minute break before we go into the second part, since we're working on Zoom. So we should all take a breath at 5:02. So we've actually got 10 minutes in which we could open up the floor to questions, comments, thoughts. I think that would be really nice to hear from others, or if anyone who's already spoken has thought of the thing that they forgot to say that needs to be said. We've got this nice little moment here to share some thoughts.
Yeah, I think, if I may, Sarah, what we really, really would like to invite the people who are present now is to kind of like share with us either what draws you to the collective, what has continuously been a motivation to be part of the collective, or what maybe can make you decide, you know, that the collective is not for you, or that it's not meeting your needs, or what you would like to see the collective to be. Because as Jose was pointing out, this is a collective effort, and it is also a space, a collective space to connect, to collaborate, to learn from each other, especially to unlearn, depending on which side of the colonial difference you are. So yeah, I mean, we all have very, very busy lives. We all have a whole lot of things to do, but hopefully this can be a very brief moment where we can really look each other in the eye and say, this has been amazing, or this has not been working, or this is what is missing. These are our blind spots, because we have blind spots. Yeah, or have you thought about this? Or could we try this? Or so, yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So first of all, I want to thank me for, I had been following, I mean, Erica, I've worked with Sandra at another group. We did a presentation last year and I got to know her, always admired her work. I got to know Angela. So Macy is amazing. And I just want to say that for me, I just feel that this organization is very inclusive in a real way that feels super authentic. I have been in spaces where I haven't felt as, that have not felt this inclusive. Even with the zine that me put together, you just really see a variety of everything, much more, again, than other spaces I've been in the sustainable fashion world. So I think that you guys are doing a great job, and I just say, keep going.
Thank you. Karishma, can I bring you in?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in my car. So yeah. I kind of agree with the sentiments that were just passed, and I'm not sure the name of the person that just said that. So yes, I agree with all of what she said. I guess the thing that I like the most is or I've enjoyed the most is the plurality, the multiple voices, the multiple perspectives. Thanks, Veronica. Yeah, so for me, that is really important. Sadly, because I'm sort of at the bottom of the world, I haven't been able to join the monthly forums, but I dedicatedly watch the YouTubes, and a couple, like some while ago I had a chat with Erica, and you know, she just questioned, we were chatting about, you know, continuing the work, and you know, the energy we put into the work, and you know, and how are people receiving the work, and I remember saying to her, please don't stop the monthly forums, because whilst we may not all be there live, it's definitely an incredible source of information. As a teacher working in a decolonial practice, in a space that's looking to decolonize, I find the information and the style of the presentations very useful to actually help, you know, give people ideas for how to do things. So again, just a great example. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. I do think that is quite a very, you know, important topic to address, is the time differences. It's such an incredible challenge. And I think one of the main reasons we do kind of agree to record things is exactly that, because in many ways recording goes against, you know, a lot of the principles we stand for, but due to the time differences, and it's impossible you know, to cater for everyone. Yeah, so we do record parts. When it comes to the conversations, for example, we record the first 30 minutes, but the reason why we're always reluctant in recording them is because we want it to be an open space where people can speak freely, you know, and that we can really be in that moment with each other and have that exchange. with each other. But that being said, the good news is that from this year onwards, the conversations are not going to be on a set time anymore. So every conversation is going to be on a different time so that it can be more accessible to different communities across the world, rather than having a set time every month. Thank you for sharing.
And thank you for clarifying on that topic of the time zones. I wasn't meaning it as a negative, but you cannot please everyone. But it is nice. The waterfall time zone would be fantastic, and it's but anyway, the information is shared beautifully, and we're very thankful to have access to it.
No, I mean, it's been a big part of our lives since we began, that we always had members of the group who were in pretty much the opposite time zone to other members. So we've been negotiating for a long time. And I think that, you know, I don't want to speak for the conversations because it's not an area that I've worked on, but I do think that, as generally speaking, we're really open to people to come and propose. I'd like to host one. I'm going to host it at this time in this place, and you know, do it at the time that works for you and your community, and we'll set our alarm clocks and join if we can. Erica's everyone, people are nodding, thank goodness, so I haven't spoken too out of turn, Angela.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. That's why also the conversations are going to be convened by different people, you know, like a rotating system. So as you say, you can choose the time and you can address your community. You can choose, you know, your topic, your language, your guests, your selected materials, yeah, to cater to your own community. And we will be joining as guests.
And watching the recording.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and thank you for your comment, Daniela, who's joined at 3 a.m. this evening. Yeah.
Yeah, any other feedback, comments, projects that you would like to see initiate? I mean, everybody's welcome to initiate own projects or ideas or collaborations or formats.
Indeed. We're going to move in the second part of this meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about the origins. We'll talk a little bit about the origin story, but we'll mainly talk about where we are today and our thoughts about why we are where we are, where we want to go. So I think this conversation will continue about the possibilities for, you know, how we could continue to do things differently. Yeah. I'm going to propose that we take a little break. Oh, Erica.
I think Tamara might have wanted to speak. Tamara, did you want to share
I can't see you. Oh, here.
Yeah, yes.
Mm.
I was thinking. Well, I'm Tamara from Chile. In the UK now because I'm doing a PhD. Actually, my first tutor is Sarah. I really value from the collective, which I have been following from my country since many years ago. What I really value is that the efforts, the very big efforts you do in order to change academia, because it's a very, like, as I see at this time, it's a very like fixed space. So I really can see the efforts you do of being flexible and create this flexible space where the focusing is in the rational, in the relation you build with the people, and how you are very focused actually right now in the process of building the collective based on the different voices that participate from outside in the building of the collective. So I really value this because I always question, or I'm questioning right now, because now I'm part of a university because of the PhD. So I'm questioning if it is possible to really be in a decolonial position in the academia. So I think you are really trying to put into practice what you think about fashion and decoloniality. So I think for me, this is very important. And also is how you are trying to find a model for the organization as well, how you can change the format in order to be more inclusive, how you can manage the different time with the rest of the country. So for me, that is very interesting, how you are trying to find different ways of doing in the coloniality of fashion.
Thank you, Tamara. And I really think that it's the doing that's so important. You know, we can talk about the ideas and we can identify all the issues and the problems, but it's the actual, then the will to do it, to try it. And as you say, you use the word effort a lot, and yeah, making the effort and not thinking, I'll make this effort and then it's done, but it's the doing and the keep on doing. Yeah.
Yes, it's about not just make a critique, but try to build something, an alternative or something new, something different.
Thank you, Tamara. Here, I would really like to also, pay tribute to, the inspirations that we get, because, by trying to disrupt, it doesn't mean that we know how to do it. But definitely, like the Decolonial Summer School has been an incredible inspiration, for example, for our conversations. How to do things differently. So not only to talk about it, but to really, that's why I think also the conversations are often not fully understood, because people think they're going to come to a lecture where they're going to be presented with like a theoretical framework or a canon, whereas the conversations is really a space of knowledge creation and sharing. So it's through the doing that we formulate and create new knowledges. Which again are not a canon. So decoloniality for you, practicing decoloniality for you is going to be different from me, and it's going to be different from, everybody present in the conversations. And the same for the assembly. The assembly was a humongous experiment, but it didn't come out of thin air. It was inspired by grassroots assemblies that have been going on for many, 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 many years, just not within the realm of fashion or, the fashion conversation or discourse. So again, it's really, about acknowledging, how we, again, are little seeds that were planted by other initiatives, other experiments, in really how can we practice it? How can we do it? And it's not always easy when you're being so formatted by academe, right? How you should be doing things, or what is, whatever, the right kind of knowledge, or valid, that's the word, valid knowledge, and which is not, and how it's created, this idea of how it needs to be, again, in a scientific way, whereas we want to build knowledges built on, again, that relationality, how I learn through you, and how my reality is impacted through that relationality with you and with all these different communities. So again, it's really about acknowledging, all those people who have come before us and have been putting in the work, and us continuing to do the work and bring it or introduce it into the conversation and the practice of fashion. Just wanted to share that.
No, it's a beautiful moment. So we're going to take a 2-minute breath. Leave your camera on, turn your camera off, do whatever you need to do. We'll be back. I'm going to be passing the chairing baton over to Erica. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.